emergency shelter, so immediate emergency access up to 14 days, and then they have family units. And so that's the primary focus for that there is family units.
I know this for Micaiah.
Yeah.
I wonder if we can get her up there.
Well, I mean, you just hit a nail on the head about the working collaboratively and together. My niece was trafficked for 15 years. I had to go find her because nobody was looking for her. Law enforcement stopped looking for her after 6 months. My own father's a police officer, and they're just like, well, she's just a runaway. Right? They get all these
She grew
labels.
up in Alaska, knows how to go to move.
Yeah.
She's like, I got this.
He's not,
Make sure,
he's not
Matt,
wrong.
will you make sure my phone, is turned off back there?
And so it's being in the space and seeing so many nonprofits not wanting to work collaboratively and collectively together. It's like, and it's heartbreaking,
right?
Because the entire point of the nonprofit, the 501c3 space, is to do the right thing and is to serve your mission and not for profit. And so, seeing these other organizations, it was a great learning, and it was really, really hard. And I became a little bit jaded because they weren't doing anything. They weren't doing what they say they were going to do. The incongruencies in word and deed, right?
Absolutely. I found myself in the same space when I first stepped into this arena. I was going, okay, so we're all talking about human trafficking. We're talking about what we should do. We're collecting checks, right? We're putting survivors on stage, and we're doing all these things, but where are the boots on the ground, and where's the hand-holding? Where are we, and I know that as being a survivor myself at that time was understanding all the barriers that were present to me exiting that life, right? It wasn't, I went from lured out, being held captive because of a drug debt that my mother owed. Several months later, because of law enforcement, I was able to find my way out. This was 1999, so there were no systems in place to expose human trafficking. That should have been the end of the story, was relocated to Northern California. I emotionally devolved very quickly because I received no support, no services, no care. Ultimately turned to drugs and alcohol to cope with my complex compound PTSD. Ended up cycling back out, now self-exploiting to support a drug habit. Spent 4 years in that lifestyle, committed a serious crime, and was looking at a prison sentence. And thankfully, by this point in time, people were starting to have a conversation about human trafficking. Had an incredible judge right here from our area that kind of understood there may be some complexities to this case. And instead of sending me to prison, gave me a second chance. I served minimal time in our county jail. The church, which is the heartbeat behind what I do, the church came alongside of me and really started to open the doors that I needed to go through. But it was collaborative, right? Yep. It was not one person, one organization that did that. It was this network of people that didn't even realize that they were so instrumental as they held hands in ensuring that I found the place that I needed to not only heal, but end up evolving into where we are today.
Flourish. You actually flourished.
Right. And you see that. The frustration is those who work in silos, those are like, well, let me take center stage because it's about my organization or my mission. And it's like, oh my goodness, it's about, like I said, I lost my daughter in 2024. I don't think anything became more pivotal to me in the moment. And I think there's a passion that definitely over the last 2 years, it was already, that fire was there, but has really turned into an inferno to really just push through all the egos, right?
100%.
Push through everything that's happening and say, look, my child needed the help of everybody around her. But including myself, so many of us, I'll own it. We all need to own it, right? We're so engulfed in what we are doing.
Well, when I look at the ecosystem, and as a family member who we didn't really understand, most family members, right? We don't really understand what's going on. We think, oh, she's making poor decisions. Oh, she's dating boys that are way too old for her. Well, it started in the school, right? That grooming started in the school. And my husband and I found her and recovered her one time prior, right? So she was probably 10 years in, and we found her and we went in. And I just thought I could just go and get her. Right. Like, I'll just go get her.
Right. Bring her home. It'll be okay.
I did. And she had 3 children at the time. And so I went to Virginia, put her in the car, and drove her home. Had no idea of the brain chemistry. I had no idea of the drugs and the stories and the children and all those layers of complexities. And in Dallas, Texas, you would think this Mecca, they have some great services, but I didn't know what I was doing. You don't know what you don't know.
Right.
You don't understand the trauma. You start hearing the stories, and I was putting it together that, oh, this is different. This isn't just her being bad. Right. This is a whole different game that we're playing. And when she would go to interview at these different facilities that we were trying to get her support, she would blow up. I couldn't go in with her because they didn't want me to, direct the conversation. Right. So she would blow it up so she could stay with her cool.
Self-sabotage.
100%. And it was this whole dynamic. And then, unfortunately, it didn't work out. I mean, obviously, at the time she was, I don't know, so that was like 7 years ago. But then when she left, of course, I blamed myself.
Right.
Because I didn't do a good enough job.
Right.
How could I have had her and her 3 babies under the age of 4? And how could they go back to the life? What did I do to make that happen? Because there were no resources supporting family members. And I still see that, and praise God that 5 years went by and we were able to find her a year and a half ago, alive. 6 children. We know where 4 of them are. But it's how do we not only remove the shame from the survivor, but how do we navigate their family members? It's like I feel like I want to create, in all the things, like an Al-Anon for family members whose family have been exploited, trafficked, abused, because nobody in my family even talks about it. It's like the dirty little secret where...
Just like alcoholism.
Exactly. And my stepmom is navigating some dementia right now. And so when I was up there last, she's like, is it okay if I ask about Dakota? Like, she doesn't even know because she knows that she's not supposed to. And I'm thinking, we need to normalize that. We need to normalize having these conversations and creating support groups so that when they're ready to come back into the family, that we have the skill sets.
Well, you hit the nail on the head. That's going to be the most likely exit point, is going to be those already established support systems, if, of course, those things are present. At Breaking the Chains, we've connected what's called Care Connect, which is exactly what you just described. So we offer a support system, a support group, a network, classes for the caregivers of those, right?
So
those,
good.
and so we have those who have children who have already exited. We have those who are still waiting for their children. I attend this class; it's very close to me, or this group. It's not really a class, and or for those who have lost children. And I just identify with what you say because for me, like, within my community, you're Debra Rush. Like, if you want to know about anti-human trafficking, we go to Debra, right? How could my child become a victim of human trafficking? In Kendra's case, Kendra had been exploited by my mother, the same person who groomed and introduced me to this. It was a single instance of exploitation at only 5 years old. I love what you said, and that just really connected so deeply with me because I've said that before. You don't know what you don't know. And I, as a lived experience expert, a survivor, whatever the title, I'm not one with titles. I don't play games with people's language. That's not the focus of what I try to do. But one of the things was that I came from literally exiting this system of exploitation, drug use, dysfunction, crisis, and walking right into, within a few years, into a position of advocacy, executive leadership, right, and trying to do all these things. Now, of course, by the grace of God, it is by no means, if you look at Breaking the Chains, me, it is God himself, I believe, that has directed and built what we have. But I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know to look at early childhood trauma. I had no idea about ACEs. I had no idea how what she had experienced even prior to 5 years old was going to impact her or even my other children for years to come. And everything seemed okay. Everything seemed fine with Kendra. we did all the things. I was engaged in all the parent activities. I was children's church leader. I have a foundation in Christ from childhood. I threw myself right back into the church. I mean, we're baking cookies. I'm the mom that's home when I'm supposed to. I'm playing the games. I am doing everything. So everything should be okay. And right about 12 years old, we start to notice a shift. Or I was still a single mother. I had not remarried at that time. And I'm starting to notice a shift in Kendra, starting to notice some anger, some rebellion, some things starting to emerge. And again, just really starting to get my feet wet in anti-trafficking. I was currently in school to become a trauma professional. I just got my degree in human services, so I'm starting to learn little things. But even as I'm asking all the right questions. I have her seeing a counselor. I have her seeing a therapist, talking to her pediatrician, and I'm hearing these things are normal. She's beginning to really try to find her identity. Kids at this age tend to push away. And at 14 years old was really an eye-opener for us. At 14 years old, I woke up one morning and Kendra wasn't there. Wow. Kendra had snuck out in the middle of the night, wasn't able to make it back before I woke up. And so, because of what was happening within our community at that time and my position in working with law enforcement, we didn't know what had happened. We didn't know, if there was some sort of retaliation that was happening. And so we launched. It was all over our news channels. Everybody was trying to find her. By noon, we had located Kendra and, of course, found out that she essentially had snuck out with some boys and, but this is when I realized we have a problem. We have a serious issue. Shortly after that, Kendra started to really struggle emotionally, and we had our first mental health crisis, and she was 5150'd in a local child psychiatric unit, which, again, in full disclaimer, I'm here to help our systems evolve, so I definitely don't want anybody to feel like I'm bashing our systems, but our mental health system really needs some help. Fast forward, Kendra ended up clinically diagnosed with a pretty significant emerging bipolar II disorder. By the time she was 16 years old, we were doing our best to try to medicate and, try to keep her on her medication and do these things. And things seemed to be working. She was beginning to excel in school. She was, slated to graduate a year early. She was she was being homeschooled at this point and working with me. She was going with me to breaking the chains. And, again, I'm thinking we're doing all the things. Our family and Kendra was targeted, and there was a in-home robbery in our home. Kendra was home alone. It was a brutal assault that lasted about 45 minutes with multiple men. After that, what I tell people is it was like a snowball going downhill that our fastball that you just couldn't get in front of. She, again, emotionally devolved very, very quickly, began just really going through it. She engaged with the justice system. And again, there's room for evolution in every area. She ended up testifying in the preliminary hearing, which was brutal. It was absolutely brutal. She had shared inappropriate conversations and pictures with one of the men who had come into our house prior to this, because she had actually given them information about where we lived. And so she was victim shamed. Yeah. She was incredible. She was victim blamed, victim shamed, all on the stand. A good friend of mine and a local advocate was there with her. She said it was one of the most heartbreaking experiences that she's seen. Following that, Kendra would be targeted 2 more times for her testimony. These were individuals that were, affiliated. I wouldn't say they're part of a gang, but, just had gang affiliates that they were around, which, again, plays into the robbery that happened in the first place. And she would end up being pulled into an apartment that she was walking by and gang raped. My other daughter, my adult daughter, who had just received her first apartment, she was sleeping on the couch when they shot through the front window. And that's where everything changed. I tell people that's where we lost Kendra. Kendra ultimately was not safe in her own home. She felt deeply, which I understand, that the system failed to protect her as she, worked with them and came in courageously to testify and do the things that she needed to do. And then she wasn't even safe in her own mind. Her mental health crisis exploded. I now know, because you find out things after the fact, after losing Kendra, that's when it was about that time she started using cocaine. And this is the first time I'm sharing this publicly as far as her drug use. And so she started dabbling with alcohol, cocaine, and marijuana. And I think that really was the beginning of the end. And it was only 2 short years later, whenever Kendra's life was taken on the very street that I was originally taken to on Figueroa in Los Angeles, very brutally. Again, by the same traffickers and individuals that we are sitting here today really combating against. And I think that people have to understand that, and I share that very critical piece of my own personal story, because people have to understand that there are so many complexities and nuances from what you explained with your niece to, I'm sure, the stories that you guys are seeing every single day at Untrafficked and what we're seeing at Breaking the Chains. And if we don't all come to the table, right. I needed our pediatrician at the table. I needed our pediatrician to understand early childhood trauma, to ask more questions about her story, her therapist. I needed all the people that were there as a mother, regardless of who I was or what I was trying to do. Now, I'll say this, is that I'm very hopeful these days. The education, and I can only speak for my community, here in the Central San Joaquin Valley, the efforts for education, prevention, and awareness is fast-tracked. We work directly with our community hospital systems here. We are educating thousands each year, and it is, for me, it really feels good to see them coming to the table and finding out what tools and resources, and again, like with our collaboration at City Center, seeing partner organizations coming to the table, pushing their own agendas aside and saying, how can we be here to meet these children in crisis?
And I think it takes these stories,
right?
The heartbreak, the pain, the absolute just being wrecked to really understand what we can do. So every day in our space at Untrafficked, people are like, how do you do what you do? Like, how do you not just get beat down? And they're like, oh, it's so scary and hard. And I continue to see the beauty.
Right.
As hard as that story is to hear, God is just on the move.
Absolutely.
It is amazing what people can do when they come together through that pain.
Right.
And that leaning into that pain and looking it in the face and understanding, okay, how can we assure that another family has to go through what we went through?
Right.
What can I do I've spent this last several years with doing a lot of policy work. How can I affect policy in such a massive way, like in Texas? You know, in Texas we had 6,888 sexual misconduct complaints against teachers with children in the schools uninvestigated.
Oh, my goodness.
6,888 teachers. Each one of those teachers equates to between 1 and about 150 assaults, because we know that in our space, right? And nobody was doing anything about it. And so I thought, not on my watch. If we have 5.5 million kids that we can go in and protect and fortify with one bill, let's do that.
Right.
And so I passed a bill that you are able now to sue schools if they're hiding sexual misconduct complaints against children. If they're hiding them, if they're not responding to them, it is their fiduciary duty to protect our children. And when you take a teacher and you pass it to the next school, you're putting more kids at risk. And that's not okay.
Well, that is one of the highest indicators that they may be vulnerable for sexual exploitation, as we talk about exploitation or some other addiction vulnerability, is prior
assault.
Sexual abuse or
exactly. And when you can do that and fortify, and Texas, I was told when I was socializing that bill, every legislator was like, there's no way. Every attorney was like, Texas has the gold standard in sovereign immunity. There's no way you're going to do that. I'm like, you don't know my God. You do not know my Jesus.
Amen.
And so we got that passed the first time around in the hopes that that's going to help terrify these schools, because now parents have civil recourse. Right. Because before, of course, you could always sue the teacher if you found out about it. But now we've got civil recourse. We can sue and you can follow the money. And that's just like one example of how we're trying to think at Untrafficked outside of the box, to think of other areas that we can fortify. Where else can we plug the hole? Because, this is like whack-a-mole. Like when you figure out one resolution, then you've got another problem that pops right back up. And you've got to figure out, okay, how can we address that problem? Who should go after that issue? What organization can we lock arms with and look at policy? Or what organizations can we lock arms with and mobilize in our community so that we don't burn out, so that we aren't jack of all trades and master of none?
Well, we have a key. And I will be completely, I do not understand. Well, I do understand. So let's hope I don't get a little too politically incorrect, because I feel like this is a conversation we don't have enough. It's a demand.
Yeah.
When we talk about exploitation specifically, I mean, we can create, and I am a known conservative, right? I'm known for being tough on crime. I've helped, as I'm sure you have, passed significant laws throughout the state of California to really put teeth into human trafficking, specifically around traffickers, more recently around buyers.
Yes.
Now, we can lock up all the traffickers in the world for life. We can, do all the things. But if we don't address demand, again, specific to exploitation, this will never stop.
That's right.
This is too lucrative of a business. And that is what blows my mind. But here's the hard conversation we don't have. Who are our buyers?
Right.
They're voting citizens.
Yep.
They are middle and upper class males. We used to always say white males, but that is not the case. I think I told you earlier before we went on is that Breaking the Chains actually operates the diversion program here for Fresno, Madera, and Kings County for buyers. And so those who are arrested for attempting to purchase sex come through our buyers program. It is equal across basically the demographics that we are seeing come through the class match the demographics of the population. Mm-hmm. However, these are not people who can't afford it, right? So these are your middle class, your mechanics, your teachers, all the way up to police officers, judicial officials, up to
pastors,
people with more money, pastors, right? And so
Teachers.
That to me, when we say how do we really get in front of this, there has to be a lot more conversations. There needs to be more laws. I'm hoping to really, really rattle, not just for us in the state of California, our state leaders, which there's a lot of pushback when it comes to buyers. They're willing to lock up traffickers. We're willing to lock up pimps and those who may be responsible and throw away the key, right? But when it comes to buyers, they're like, ooh.
That's because those buyers are their friends. Let's be clear.
Right. Let's be clear.
Let's just say it like it is.
That's right.
I started with working on pornography as a public health hazard, and we've got that now in like 21 or 22 states, whether it's a resolution or it's a bill, because we have to see that your point on demand, pornography is the entry point. And when men and women watching pornography, we've got to address it like even to that point of what are we doing in our home? How can we fortify our home and protect our home? Right. Well, are you watching porn? And when I go into a legislator's office, and I cannot tell you how many legislators in the 20 states I've worked with tell me, it's just porn. Just porn. They don't realize that it's teaching our young men, and it's creating a hypersexualized community and a culture. It has co-opted our culture, and that's why these upper middle class men are buying sex. That's why all of these teachers that are having, they call it inappropriate relationships with children. It's rape. Let's just be really clear. Like, we've got to address the languaging. And they believe it's normal.
Well, we have to have consequences. And again, I want to make this very clear. I agree with you 100% about the pornography issue, right? So do not take away with what I'm going to say next. And I'm a pastor's wife. I would love to see pornography, right? Like gone, just disintegrated off the face of this earth. Criminalize it. I don't know. That's not likely to happen.
Right.
I would rather have somebody, what I think people need to understand is that we have to have consequences for demand. I mean, felony consequences.
Well, in Texas, we do. Texas, it is a felony to buy sex. The problem is, though, is that they all get pled down.
Well, and that's what we have to stop, because here's the thing. Again, when you look at your buyer programs, those who are purchasing sex for sale, these are middle and upper class men who typically have no other records. These are not other criminals, right? And these are people who work hard to not have a criminal record. These cannot get pled down. This has to be a hard, fast rule. there is so the days of saying I didn't know this was a victimless crime is behind us. It is on human trafficking is in every airport, every hotel, every place. It is on every channel. It is on every PSA. Every community is talking about this. And we got to continue to do that. So you cannot hide behind the guise of I didn't realize that what I was doing carries this level of consequence. And then there needs to be felonies. Because if we have felonies that are unmovable, not wobblers.
Yeah, that's what we have in Texas.
Not wobblers. I promise you, you will watch exploitation all but evaporate here in America. That's what will happen because they are not willing to risk their livelihood and their reputations behind this. There may be a handful, but not enough for it to be so lucrative that these traffickers will continue to.
And I would let's add in that into that penalty, right? In Texas, you can have civil forfeiture, but if you use that car when you're buying that human, that car needs to be seized. We need civil forfeiture for houses, cars, anything.
And there needs to be public disclosure. Your family, the community needs to know that you have predatory tendencies, that this has moved. Because again, I agree with you about the pornography, but whatever's happening in the privacy of your own home or bedroom has now moved into actual victimization of other human beings. And to me, there's no difference between that person and the person that victimizes a child.
Is the education, the re-education working? Does it lower recidivism?
So for us, it has. So that is a great pivot and a great question. So for us, we haven't done numbers in about 4 years. We had a little bit of a shift in how we're combating human trafficking in law enforcement. Very good shift. It's very necessary just based on what we've been doing. But 4 years ago with our previous vice unit, we were seeing indications that there was about a 41% recidivism reduction because they weren't seeing the same. And so this was not like an official study, but this was our vice team who was out there every day. And they indicated to us that they were not seeing the guys that they would see, they would arrest. Oh my gosh, there he is again, right? That was not happening. And so at the same level. So yes, I do believe that as education emerges, but if I had my choice, if I could make my own bill right now, what I would like to see is that first-time offenders of adults, right? They are required. There are stiffer penalties. Maybe not a felony yet. I will say this. Maybe not a felony yet. Just we could change that in 10 or 20 years once we get all the education out there. That they have to come through a diversion program that is. Not just any diversion programs, because some of the diversion programs that we have seen, they are not really diversion programs. Something that is as comprehensive and at the level that Breaking the Chains is provided. And I would welcome anybody who wants to sit in on a class, just let me know and you can come sit in on one. And that way, when they receive that certificate and they walk out, if there is some sort of reoffense, they have no excuse to say, I did not understand all the details, all the nuance. They spent 8 hours in a really intense class session learning about all of the factors that contribute to human trafficking, what's actually happening behind the scenes within the sex trade, how what they're doing impacts that person's emotional, psychological, and physical health, and what that re-victimization actually looks like. So again, you're not able to walk out of that class and
So is that the entirety of the class? It's just it's an 8-hour course, and then what happens in the diversion program that you're talking about?
So it's really heavy on what we just talked about really helping them understand what's happening with exploitation. And again, not just human trafficking, because we have to be honest. We have started to see a little bit of a pivot, right? Traffickers criminal organizations operate like businesses, profit and loss, risk and benefit, as teeth have been started to apply. Again, here in Fresno and other areas, we're starting to see them go, I don't know if this is something I want to be a part of. Guys are getting life sentences now in California, right? So doesn't mean they're stopping, but we've seen a pivot. We're seeing, though, this is to open up a whole new can of worms, is culturally this sexualization of our children and this normalization of behavior is leading to self-exploitation.
That's exactly
So
right.
we are seeing more kids that are actually posting their own ads and self-exploiting, and young adults who are doing this, young women, right? And so we actually talk about, again, it doesn't matter if there's a third-party component, right? Or if there's not, because the level of trauma that is being experienced is the same. Really, to put it in crayon for them, one of the scenarios that we use is that, we will ask them directly. It is, again, we're very blunt in class, is we actually have an activity where they are offered money to solicit themselves. And every time across the board, they're like, no, and we hire that. I'm like, we'll give you $5,000 for 5 minutes. You're just going to go in this back room, show them a picture of a big guy, probably feels like a prison scene. This is what's going to happen. It's $5,000. You won't do this for $5,000? They're like, absolutely not, right? Why? And really have them break that down within themselves. We bring it back to something has went incredibly wrong. There is an incredibly tragic vulnerability that is present in the lives of those who are engaging in the sex trade. Yeah. If it's as extreme as what we're seeing with like our foster care children who have these high ACE scores with extensive, prior sexual abuse, mental health issues, or those who just really are struggling with their own self-esteem and their value system, alcohol, drug use. You are participating in re-victimizing them in the midst of their vulnerability when you should be someone that's offering them help. If I'm coming to you to sell my body for some sort of sexual favor, this by no means has my life been perfect, and this is just something I woke up one morning, I'm like, I think I'd really like to do this. There is something that is really wrong. And so the same as we protect our senior citizens and we protect those that have developmental delays and all the different vulnerable communities, this community needs to be protected as well.
Well, on Monday, I was in Texas. We had the Attorney General did a roundtable symposium on human trafficking for Human Trafficking Prevention Month. And one of the startling statistics that I've known, because I'm also a foster mom, so I've already known this. We already know our foster kids are at risk, right? But what they said, when you have the Attorney General say that the 3 biggest factors of people who they're finding are either self-exploiting or being exploited is going to be poverty, and if they're involved in the CPS system. That was far above everything else.
And mental health.
And, of course, and then the mental health. But if they're involved in those 3 things, that's it. And we have to start looking back at, to your point, not only are we concerned about the buyers, yes, but as children, where they're sexualizing them on TV or their shows, and they're telling them this is normal behavior, normalizing this, and what it does to a child's brain when they see one image of pornography and what that does to their brain.
Yes.
What that changes in their brain chemistry, it sets them up for future problems. Right. And we've got to cut that off. It's like that's the head of the snake. Right. And how do we do that? Well, part of it has to do with what are we teaching our kids? Moms and dads, are you talking to your kids? Right. One of the things that reminded me on the most powerful thing that we can do as parents, right? Because a lot of times I go talk and they're like, well, what can we do? It's so hard. Well, one of the things that we can all do collectively, and I'm sure you're already aware, is if you are working with kids or teenagers, let's not say if you share a nude, it's on the internet forever and there's nothing we can do.
Right.
Let's stop saying that, folks.
Because there's stuff we could do.
Because kids are killing themselves. Right. They are committing suicide.
Sextortion is like the biggest upcoming form of exploitation that we are
around.
Seeing. Yeah.
What we need to do, parents, is have the conversations with your kids, explain that once it's out of your control, there are things we can do. The Take It Down Act that we just passed recently, there is a website that you can submit these images that can be taken down through NCMEC. There's a Nucosi. There are things we can do. Don't just say it's going to ruin your life forever. Right. It's now time to say, okay, kids, let's talk about an exit plan. Right. Who's the safe adult that, let's just say you did this terrible thing and sent a nude to somebody. Who's a safe adult that you feel comfortable talking to?
Yes.
Now, my son refers to me as the Old Testament mom, so I may not be the best safe adult, right? I mean, I'm just kidding. I mean, no, he does say that, but who is that person in your family?
Right.
Who is that person in your community that you can say, well, I probably couldn't tell my parents, but you know what? My aunt, I could tell her.
Right.
And then have an exit plan. Okay, then what happens? And then you tell that adult, and then that adult can work with you to
Right.
pull it back.
I love that.
Let's shift our messaging, because this doom and gloom and the world is coming to an end isn't serving anybody.
And they're able to be blackmailed. They're able to be
That's right.
extorted.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have 2 instances where the county commissioner of Tuscaloosa, Alabama, came to us with 147 cases of sextortion. The girls between the ages of 13 and 15, none of them wanted to talk to law enforcement. None of them wanted to talk to their parents, and none of them wanted to talk to their pastors for being, for fear of being shamed. And then in Texas, one of our advisory board members, I'll get into him later because he's great in technology, but his wife runs a mental health care facility. And so I originally met her, and she says, every single one of these teen girls is coming in because they don't know how to go to their parents.
Right.
They don't know how to go to their churches
Right.
for fear of being shamed.
Right.
And so they're already in a position of being depressed. They thought that they were sharing a picture with a
Right.
cute boy that's their peer.
Right.
And then here comes a criminal saying, if you don't pay me between $500 and $10,000,
Right.
I'm going to kill you and your family.
Right.
And so so we not only on the communication side, but on the operations side, we wanted to put together, the capabilities in order to be able to counter that in real time across the board. And so we've put together a pretty good team of first of hunter analysts using the technology in order to be able to tackle these cases on the digital and the real life trafficking cases in order to be able to do that. But then I realized that, my gosh, this problem is so massive. How are we going to scale?
And even our young men. How many of our young men are getting caught in these sextortion? I mean, we've seen countless suicides.
With the sexualization of children becoming a social issue, it muddies the waters a lot, because then there's the who said you can't say this is wrong. And so where's the moral compass here?
Right.
And this is the really difficult thing. And so we didn't even want to get into that conversation. And so when we had our annual meeting in December for strategy and everything else, and we said, what is going to be the pinnacle of next year's plan with Untrafficked? What is the one thing that we really want to focus on? And it's intelligence. And
And you have to think about, so when we think about males, right?
Yeah.
So I've been really kind of leaning in over the last year into sextortion. Kendra's Cause, which is a second organization that has now been started in honor of my daughter, which is all about prevention, intervention, and awareness, education. And one of the things we're seeing is suicide rates under sextortion is higher amongst males.
Right.
When you think about this than it is females, right? Because again, what you just said is so pivotal. Our young girls have normalized this behavior. It's become acceptable for you to put it all out there, right? And they are actually less likely than a male who does put it all out there. And then now it's going out, he thinks it's going to go out to the school or to family or to whoever it is, where we're seeing these. I mean, there was a family, I was speaking at Weber University in Utah, and probably one of the most profound stories that I heard, and they had only lost their child at the beginning of that previous year, was their son. And he literally went from a basketball game to receiving a message to being caught in one of these sextortion situations, and had taken his life within 2 hours. I think it was like 2.5 hours after dinner. I mean, we're talking a 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock basketball game and an 8 o'clock death.
Wow.
You know, I think about how our society is like this instant society now, right? What if we also, and I'm thinking about how we have these conversations, just invite young people to take a beat, take a minute. Like, you get that text, you're freaking out, and we live in this instant society. Just you know what, son or daughter or my just take a minute, take a breath.
Right.
Because what had happened if that family would have had an exit strategy, had these
Right.
conversations about, okay, if this does happen, take a beat. Like,
Right.
just take a minute and remember what our exit strategy was. Remember that we can take it down. Like, thinking through, you know how I'm going to age myself, but when I was a kid and they had, this is your brain on drugs, right?
The eggs.
The eggs. We all remember that.
Right.
Why wouldn't we start thinking through national PSA program about just take a step, take a breath.
Yes.
Just take a breath and what that could do.
Give me your, as a parent and a grandparent, and I see kids getting these phones at really young ages, tell me the connect the dots for me. The kid gets a phone, male or female, and the pathway from phone to suicide, to sexploitation. Connect the dots for me.
That's a really good question, because when we're seeing kids, I think it's like 98% of kids under 13 have cell phones. I mean, it's crazy. Mm-hmm. And so what we got to look at is when are teaching our children how to communicate in a healthy manner. Because if you're at school and you're texting somebody, and it could be a friend of yours that could do this, or it could be those farms out in the Philippines,
yes,
where that's what they do. They just randomly get people's texting, get their phone number, and they text them.
Yep.
Now, if it's going to be somebody that they know, it's going to be done a little differently than if it's going to be some random center in the Philippines,
right,
where they build rapport. And it's just, it could be anything from, how are you? Like the silly ones that we get, like, are you free for dinner? And I'm like, you think I'm going to fall for that? I'm smarter than that. Or I haven't seen you in a long time, or whatever that connection is, right? To get that hook, to be able to get that child to respond to that person. If you don't have mirroring apps on your phone as a grandparent or as a parent where you can read every single one of these texts and see who it's coming from, then you need to get that app. There's multiple apps out there. I know that you've got a caveat.
Bark is a great one.
That you to use, because you need to see the communication. But it can go so sideways. It can go from building rapport to I'm mad at my mom. And so I say something to this person that I'm mad at my mom about. And then they say, I understand, your mom, and they start that vulnerability. They start chipping away, and then they'll isolate. And then it goes to, from there, it can literally go to, generally, they'll send something, or they'll ask you to send something. And in that moment when they're frustrated, they could send a naked nude back to them. Now, that's kind of old school. Now with AI,
I was just going to say,
with AI, what's happening is that you could be an innocent and just send a picture of your face, and they can create a compromised picture of you. And that's where the point of really isolation and blackmail begins. So then you're like, they're going to say, you need to do X, Y, and Z, or I'm going to tell your family, because they can go online, they can go on all your socials, they can see who you are, they can see who your parents are. The Attorney General's office told us on Monday that now they're also targeting community members. So the victim may not have been the kid. The victim was maybe the kid's parent.
Right.
But they're using the kid to weaponize to get to the parent.
And we're seeing too, when I was at Weber, FBI actually said in the one case where I was talking about the young man, when you talk about AI, they actually were able to lure him in by trolling, and it was a farm.
Yep.
It was a farm out of, I don't know if it's Philippines, but I remember them talking about it was a whole other country, so the complexities of really trying to prosecute these individuals. But they actually invested so much time that they were able to get a picture of a popular young woman from a adjoining school, high school. So, and then a friend of his who was actually a friend connection to that girl, they took her face. They were able to create all these different images. So then he started believing that this girl who he had contact
Relationship
with.
with, yeah.
Right. I mean, we didn't really have, but he was like, oh my gosh, it's her, right? And hey, your friend gave me the number, your number. I just wanted to. So he actually felt comfortable enough because, again, like she said, they manipulated the images. The other side of that is they're using it with community members, like what you were saying with that. So I've actually had this conversation even with my husband as a pastor, where they will send images. Let's say they create an AI image of my husband doing something very compromising with a child, with another woman, with whatever. They'll send it to him and be like, this is going out to your wife and everybody unless you give us this amount of money. And we have to be aware of that. What they had told us was, if that occurs, the best thing you can do, and this is what we were just talking about it. I did a scroll, swipe, exploit webinar in December. And one of the things, the greatest advice they said, easiest, is you just don't respond.
That's right.
Because they're farming out. So if they don't get a response via email or your text message, turn off your read receipts. Everybody should be doing that. It just gets us caught up in bad friendships as well. But just turn off your read receipts. If they don't know that you've received that, they will actually move on.
Yep.
They won't continue to send messages because, again, they're like a fisherman. They're just throwing things out there to see who will bite.
And that's if it's in a like a farming situation, but if it's somebody that you know,
Right.
If it's the guy, we had a situation where a young girl she was playing soccer. I can't remember the exact, but let's just say it was a soccer game, and she posts everything on her Facebook, and the perpetrator can see that her dad never shows up, and then he'll ping her on Facebook, and he'll start complimenting her. And then he'll even say at one point in time, well, your dad's a great guy. He's just so busy, right? So he's taking a vulnerability and where she's lonely and she needs attention, and they're manipulating that child to believing that they're a friend. And they could be pretending to be a young boy, or they could be just being an old guy, being, don't worry, I'm a friend of your dad's. So we have to look at this, and I'd love for Eric to talk about a little bit more about Untrafficked's capabilities of not only do we need to be insightful and vigilant, parents, like look at your kids' phones, check what they're communicating with. Now, I'm a believer, again, I'm going to make that reference back to the Old Testament mom, where my foster kids don't get, if they want a phone, I'm happy to give them a flip phone.
Right.
But I'm not going to give them access to the internet. I'm not giving them unfettered access. If they want access, even their 14, 15-year-olds, I'm in the room. You want to get on that computer? I'm in the room.
Right.
Because this is a whole new crime that we've got to ensure that we work together and start teaching it. Again, it's a PSA.
Right.
How can we collectively come together and ensure that we can create PSAs where it's not complicated? This is your brain on drugs.
Right.
But this is how you can fortify your family. And I think, Eric, I'd love to have you kind of go into, it's a little technical, but I think that it's an understanding of where we're going in this space.
Well, I mean, one piece of it was, you got the whole, that part of the trafficking ecosystem, the grooming, the sextortion, and then, the eventual, abduction into trafficking or into exploitation, right? And so how do we look at that from a social perspective, a communications perspective? And so what I saw was a lot of academic lessons, and I said, we need to create an invitation into a scenario that a child can be in. And so we found an incredible artist, and so we created comic books that have scenes. And so, and that's part of our Guardian manual, where there's just a whole bunch of scenes, and the more that we find out about these real life situations, the more we create. And then we like that. But with today's life being busy in this microwave culture, people forget the lessons like 5 seconds after they're distracted by something else. And so how do you keep them in touch, and how do you go from teaching them a lesson to building a culture?
Right.
And then we wrestle through how to be able to build that. And then that is we call that a counter-psychological operation against the predators and for the families.
Right.
And so that's one piece of it. And then the other piece of it is, how do you then take a counter-operation and then work in the digital world and do so in a legal way to where we're not only just informing law enforcement, in order for them to be able to do their job. But where is there, if there's not one there, and we may happen to have a policy expert in the room now, and so we're so glad Tami's with us over the last couple of months. The ability to say, okay, here's our capabilities, but like 80% of this would be breaking the law if we do it. We need to go ahead and make this kind of tactical work legal,
Right.
to where there's an immediate, it'll recognize a deepfake and just shut it off,
Right.
to where it doesn't require a parent.
Right.
And so, do I want the parent to be involved? Oh my gosh, yes, of course I do. But let's just be real. Some parents have 2 and 3 jobs. We're working with a national organization right now and building out, an ecosystem just for their kids on what happens between 3 and 7 o'clock in the afternoon.
Right.
Because the parents are too busy. And so how do we take and now extend that into society, into what organizations we can work with, how we can be able to implement these things, and then where do we have access where we know the predators are coming in after them.
Right.
And so the whole, it's really a testimony. But we ended up meeting the systems architect of the NSA Surveillance Division, the director of the Defense Information Systems Agency, the CIO of Gitmo, who's one of the best process optimizers on the planet, and the former military director of the CIA. That's our little tech team. And so,
High five, Untrafficked. I love it.
we had to start there because, so without intelligence, you can't tell the technology what to do. And so if we don't know what's wrong, or if we don't hear your testimony, but does your testimony tell us about the 150, because I call this thing the amoeba, this ecosystem. Like every single one of these cases is different, and we were down on Figueroa a couple months ago. We had a King Air ready to go. We had a girl that's been trafficked since she was 14 years old. She's now 33. She met us. She was ready to come home. And 4 hours into this, we partnered with the Dream Center LA on this. And so they were wonderful. And 4 hours afterwards at stoplight, this girl goes into a psychotic episode.
She
She breaks, runs.
Yep.
And she goes right over to MacArthur Park.
Right.
And that's where she's been living. And the chances of surviving there
Right.
are not very long. And so we're sitting here going, okay, there are some aspects of this that we don't know because we can't extract an adult
Right.
who is not willing. That's
Right.
to us becoming kidnappers, right?
Right.
And then if we take that person somewhere else, they might repeat the same patterns in a new city. And this particular person has repeated this pattern in multiple cities. And we just...
Well, and I think for that, for me as a direct service provider, and may I say this, you guys are incredible. I am so
You're
looking
incredible.
forward
You're
to
incredible.
partnering with you. Tami, you are, oh my goodness, I can't even imagine. We are going to be doing some things standing shoulder to shoulder. I can't wait to glean and learn from you. Thank you for everything you're doing. When you were talking about, applications and what you guys are working on with your tech team, I couldn't help but think, and I don't live in a series of regret. I look in, this is exciting for the future, as my daughter would probably still be here. Had that been available to me, I would have known there were men coming in my house.
Yeah.
I would have known 2 days before that she was having a conversation that was dangerous, right? And so we could have probably avoided all the things, right? But as a direct service provider, right, I make sure I let our staff know, especially so with adults or even with youth who are non-compliant, is that you can't hold that responsibility.
Right.
You can do what you can do. We can be the boots on the ground. We can ensure that, I love what we said earlier, that we are not working in silos, that we are holding hands, that we are stepping outside of our own egos, our own agendas. I think that within the trafficking community, it has been incredibly frustrating when I've watched people make it a partisan issue, right? Making it political. I've seen passive-aggressive posts like, oh, you shouldn't align yourself with certain people and this and that. Like, we need to all be in the fight. We need to be ready to educate everybody. We need to approach it from all of our different perspectives. And you can only do what you can do. Yeah. But what we can do
we call that being mission-focused.
Be mission-focused.
Yeah.
And we can partner with Untrafficked. So if my community is listening to this, right, we can partner with Untrafficked. We can partner with agencies that are doing the work because prevention, education, and passing policies and laws is ultimately what will prevent the victimization, which I think is ultimately our goal, right, in the first place. And, and then continue to lift up, because it's not the final response. It is the response to pray for that young woman who,
That's exactly right.
who left from MacArthur Park, to lean back into that. And I think when an individual who is, engaging in these type of behaviors, or who is involved in these different lifestyle choices or situations, whatever the case may be, if they know there's a support system, we just got to hope they make it back to that support.
Yeah.
I think that's the win.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And so we took this prevention thing, we call it the Guardian Alliance, and then we built that handbook, and then, right before, Tami came, and I'm so glad she came when she did, we were introduced by a mutual friend, and we said, you know what, we have to make this dynamic and interactive. And so we're creating a portal that's going to launch soon that's super dynamic, which is going to have all of these resources in one place, and it'll ping you as a parent.
wow.
And so, it'll give you constant reminders, or if your child's cellular phone, email, social media handles are being compromised, meaning if there's a deepfake or a bad actor, somebody who we have a digital twin on a list because we have that technology as well, it'll alert you. And then now we're looking to make the countermeasures that are fully automated legal.
Can I ask, or maybe if this is possible, something to take back to your team? One of the issues
We're working
I had.
together, right? So
Okay,
You are our team.
Yay!
What?
Yay! I'm excited.
let me say this about Untrafficked. We are not, even the way that we got the name was like a miracle. But it's not about us. Like, you can't find me. Like, I got yelled at by donors because the team is not on the website, because none of us want to take credit for it.
Right.
We're here. Mark 10:45 says, "For even the Son of Man did not come to be served." And if God is saying, "I'm here to serve you," and we claim that we're His children, it's not going to be about us. It's not going to be about building a ministry in our own name.
Right.
It's going to be about serving each other, building an ecosystem, locking arms to be able to love and protect the most vulnerable that are out there. And if we don't do that, we're corrupted.
I think that's a mic drop right there.
Yeah.
As a mother, so even in my situation, and again, I hear this from parents in our circle, the Care Connect that we are in, is Kendra learned very quickly to create alternate profiles. Right? So she knew I would be tracking her. So I want to make that clear. I did know. So I had her
There's
on
a way
guard.
to be able to recognize digital signatures, by the way.
That's what I want to see, is like, can like with her face, right? Almost, yes. Okay. Because as a mother, that's the scary part, is Kendra, I had as her social media profile. I was able to monitor it. I was her friend. I was doing all the things. And then when everything came out, and it wasn't even till after she passed away. And I was able to gain access through LAPD to all of her stuff, and it was like, there was like 7 profiles.
So think about what it would be like for us moms and dads and grandparents, where you could opt in. So if your kids and your grandparent, your the children that you love in your life, that you could opt in on an app, download the app, and if there's a threat, Mom will know.
If my daughter's face is on my child's face, so it doesn't have to be your daughter. If my child's face is on anything, I should get access. I should get notified.
That's right.
So that technology exists already.
So,
okay.
So in a
That's
world,
a game changer.
Yeah, in a world where
more than that too, which is good.
In a
I'll
world
tell you more
where
about that.
everybody is saying, "What can I do? I don't know what to do. I'm so scared." God has not given us a spirit of fear. We do not operate in fear. We operate in solutions, and we operate. It's a whole different level. And so, I'm looking at people's faces, and we're, of course, this. People start disassociating because the topics get hard and scary. To be able to say, we have a solution.
Yeah.
It's an app where you can download it, and all of a sudden you've got an extra layer of fortification. Still be vigilant, but that world is coming much, much sooner.
I'm excited.
We're working with one of the major cellular providers as
To
well
make that
to
happen.
do a lot of.
I think a lot of lives will be saved when that application
cool
can,
things.
when parents can access that. I think we're going to be surprised. And then again, I don't want to drag this out too far, but then we'd have a whole nother. But to find out who's engaged and who's not, having assigned caregivers, as people who are responsible for those, that's just a game changer.
That is.
It's a game changer for foster parents,
That,
right? To
you
know,
what.
Well,
to
and
get that
also-
notification, hey, so and so has just posted something that you didn't know is happening. The intervention that can happen in that moment.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. But on top of that, we don't openly share the data with anybody. We don't allow anybody
good.
to scrape it.
That's good.
And so there are some apps that are out there that are protective in nature. They sell the data.
They sell the data.
They sell the
Yep.
data.
No, I know what
It's
you're talking
Life
about, and that's
360
frustrating. Yep,
sells
yep.
the data of your child's
Yeah.
location.
Yeah.
And that's not okay with us.
No.
And so, but knowing all of that, having the amount of intelligence, the amount of data, and building out the profiles that we do on digital twinning, that message goes out loud and clear that we know who you are, we know what you're doing in your digital world, and we're one step away from law enforcement coming
Right.
after you, and it's all built on evidence. And so we have former federal, state, and local law enforcement that have been involved in advising this type of development, so that we know that when it's going to come into their organizations, it'll be done so in a way to where there's not going to be any attrition of information.
Right.
And so we want to make it, and so our goal is not exposure of a bad guy, it's prosecution. And that also, at the very least, comes in at exposure. And like you said, these young boys, they're the most vulnerable. And so when they start getting scared, they're like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to not,
this.
look at this person anymore. And, we have the ability to track porn, child porn, usage, all of it. And in sex crimes, it's different than all other threats, but we have the ability to be able to score the level of threat that's there.
That is so exciting.
It's the national. I'm sorry, I'm having a senior moment here, but the
National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. I just
Like
said
what
the same thing.
brothers out, yeah.
I just said the same thing you did. I don't know.
the national the list.
I have a question, an adjacent question.
Yeah.
Are these foreign actors, these foreign exploiters, are they hands-free?
All the
We can't-
above.
We can't do anything about that?
All the above, and so there is a way to be able to do it. We get Interpol involved, and they'll go after those. But those are, right now, Untrafficked is really focusing on untrafficking America,
Right.
and being able to support the 289 organizations that we work with that are affiliates, and now more.
Well, 290.
Yeah. So, and you got a few of them over here. So, and California's a little tricky sometimes.
Yeah, no, I know. Oh,
So
I
we
know.
get all the idiosyncrasies there.
I think Vanessa, my mentor, Vanessa Russell, and I just love her to death. We know because we are two of the more conservative leaning organizations here in California, and we fight against about 100 other not conservative organizations that are like, okay, so yeah,
It's sad. Let's make it about the kids.
we won't make it about that, right? It does prove for I think like I said, there's few things that are more frustrating for me present day than to foresee people make trafficking political when there is nothing political about the trafficking of our children.
Mm-hmm.
It should just be a full stop, no brainer across the aisle. This is not okay.
Mm-hmm.
And what do we do to stop it? So
what I was referring to before is the sexual, just drawing a blank, the list of sexual perpetrators that have been arrested and convicted. What's the list called?
On the federal side? On the federal side?
No, it's just across the United States.
Oh, just the sexual predator, where you have to register to be a sex offender.
Sex offender list. Thank you. I could not.
Megan's list. Megan's Law?
Well, no. So we'll just the U.S. National Sex Offenders List.
Registry, yeah.
The registry is there, but those are the folks that have been convicted.
Right.
And so we made it
a mission to be able to use intelligence to find out all of those that have not been caught and build our own.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then watch them.
And so based on their digital behavior. And so when you look at their digital behavior, predators, when they make these decisions, they're not all that smart. And so
No, they're not. That blood has left the head. So.
they're not that difficult to track.
No, they're not. No.
And so and it's for us, it's it's about as clear as day. And we had a federal task officer from a federal law enforcement agency come into our annual meeting and present. And I thought he was just going to talk about what it looked like to work with an NGO. And we don't talk about the idiosyncrasies of cases amongst the board and the team. Sometimes we'll tell a story or a survivor will come in and just share how Untrafficked has impacted her or him. And he said, well, on this last case, like what typically takes us 48 hours when we get the call to go find the kid. And with Untrafficked, it took 6.
Wow.
And so it's, I didn't expect him to say that. Promise I didn't pay him. But the whole team went, wow, Eric, that's a federal law enforcement officer who just said that. And I said, hey, guys, it's still 5 hours and 59 minutes too long. And I said, I'm all for the rah-rah speech. But so we are relentless in being able to solve problems. Right. And so some say that we're a comprehensive solution. We're not. We don't own any of our own homes. Mm-hmm. We have not been called into that space. We have been from our operations, we have been advising policymakers, but we have not been involved in doing our own policy. Granted, that's the public sector anyways, and we're so grateful that policymakers can all get together and say, all right, you know what, at large, we want to go ahead and do this, city, county, state, federal. And so we have the ability to be able to create that net that stops the perpetrators and then also protects the vulnerable.
And that's what's needed. I mean,
and that's what's needed, yeah.
Breaking the chains doesn't want to exist.
Yeah.
We're the hospital room, right?
Yeah.
We don't want to.
Yeah,
I want to
God
work
bless
myself
you guys,
out of a
though.
job. We don't want to be on that side.
Yeah.
This, to me, is, again, like I said, incredibly inspiring and just something I'm really excited about watching this come and just being a part of this, a part of the team, is just really exciting. And it just gives me, again, a lot of hope.
We're getting there. It's we've been around for 6.5 years, and I feel like we're just getting started.
Oh, I'm excited.
There's so much to learn.
Yeah.
And there's, these kids are so precious.
Yes, they are.
And if we don't take a stand to untraffic every single piece of this ecosystem, the little slimy snakes will figure out a way to be able to get to our kids, and I don't want it. And so we kind of do this whole not on our watch thing. Yep. And I love the fact that we can, lock arms with you. And Tami's our CEO now, and she's
it seems like you made a very good decision in that.
It's a very prayerful decision on both sides, and it's been a really good. She's a great leader. She's a great servant leader, and you're going to really enjoy working with her. And then for the rest of the team, everything that we do and that we are going to do, we're here to be able to support you as well.
Well, thank you.
Sure.
Well, this has been amazing.
I mean, you said it's not an over there problem.
So interesting. So many people that we talk to, we're out of Texas, and so many people that we talk to continue to say, oh, I know, sex trafficking is awful. And I'm like, yes, so I need you to come and learn about what's happening in your neighborhood. And when you even say the word sex trafficking, what most images come up is maybe a woman chained to a heater in a dirty apartment, or maybe she's put in a cage and shipped somewhere. That's not the case.
Right.
What's happening here in our country is kids are going to school and they're getting exploited at school and they're coming home at night. Only the last statistic I received, which was on Monday, it was like 0.7% of trafficked victims are actually kidnapped. 0.7. That means it's happening in your own home,
Right.
just like it was happening in my sister's home. It's happening right next door, and it's a real problem domestically. And I don't know if you find the same thing, but oftentimes people are very willing to donate money for a problem over there.
Right.
But when we start talking about raising money to save, to go into a school district and train an entire school district that we need funds to do that for, because we may pass laws in Texas that require anti-human trafficking training, but there was no budget for it. So you have to have NGOs come in and do it for free, right? So it takes money. People are like, well, why would we need to do that in America?
Right.
And so this is a here problem.
Yeah, and while we love our government and we love our law enforcement, we love the detectives, they're also overwhelmed. And this problem, again, is so prolific that if we don't build something outside of the government to influence the public sector, it's not going to work. And I often use this analogy when you use the Waze app. There's your little emoji. You're driving down the freeway and you're going 70 to 55, and you see that little cop emoji there. You're slowing down a quarter mile before and a quarter mile after, so you don't get caught for breaking the law. It's in our inherent structure, our mentality to go over the speed limit. That's just who we are as human beings. And so we push and push and push on laws, and there's just not enough police officers out there to pull everybody over on a freeway, right, that's speeding. And there's only one, maybe two or three emojis of police officers out there on your little Waze app. And so for us, how do you be able to create emojis where they're like every 5 feet so that people are looking to break the law by hurting children? Now see that there's an absolute impossibility of them not getting caught.
Right.
Yep.
And they have the fear of God in them, so that we can now use capabilities, intelligence, technology, put all those things together, communicating with adults and community leaders, schools, equipping, training everybody in order to be able to build this ecosystem and disrupt it. Absolutely disrupt the criminal mind from hurting children. They want to go out and speed? Great. They want to go do this, they want to go do that, but lay your hands off the kids.
It goes back to, we need to make exploitation unthinkable.
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 Yeah, amen.
Are they going to feel encouraged? Are they going to get real tools? What are they going to get if they come see you tomorrow?
Well, one, they're going to get tools in order to be able to equip them on how to address their own children. Most parents have no idea what this is. They have no idea how to discuss it amongst themselves. They have no idea how to discuss this with their children. So we invite them into scenarios through really creative art in order to be able to walk them through this process of what it looks like for a child to be groomed online, to be groomed through social media, to be groomed through online gaming, to be groomed at school, to be groomed at their home, to be groomed at a neighbor's house, a family member's house, to be groomed. 11% of the time it happens in a neighborhood where somebody's driving by and then they go and they want to snatch a kid, right? And so that's part of the grooming that's there, as they literally talk from a car, or they look and they try to snatch them at a shopping mall. Hey, your mom's waiting outside. Let's come with me. I'll take you out there. And there's all these different scenarios that are grooming by a coach. The old handsy coach. There's a lot of those out there. The more porn, the more handsy coaches there are, right? And so we unfortunately we went after an old friend of mine. So there are a lot of handsy coaches that are out there that we had to go over, and we had to actually go after an old friend because he took his fetish and then he wanted to live out the disgusting things that he was keeping in private, and he hurt a bunch of kids because he was a coach.
Right.
And so, again, we look at those scenarios. We want to train parents to do everything that they can, give them the ability, the technology, the tools in order to be able to do that. And then also in the background, be operating 24/7, 365 in the digital world in order to be able to have those countermeasures that are there. And so they'll learn all about that, and then they'll also get the equipping tools as well.
And what I kept hearing is there are tools, there are options, there is training, there is hope, and I don't think parents understand that.
No, and that's my battle cry. my battle cry is that once you understand it, it's not so scary. Like, it's traumatic, it's awful, and there's ways that we can cut the head off the snake. And if the one thing that they come and learn about is how to have that conversation, if that one thing is like what to look at on a phone, if they just take one of our techniques home with them and actually do it, that could save their child's life.
It'll make a difference. Yeah.
It's going to make a massive difference. And sometimes people get overwhelmed with all the stuff and they kind of freeze. And that's why these parent guides, where it walks you through how to do it, it's a tangible book. It looks interesting enough to where your kids will pick it up. This is going to change everything. This is one of the main reasons this organization is my new home, is because I didn't have any of these resources. I had to get on the dark web. I had to get my PI license in order to find my own niece because nobody would do the hard things. I had to make all the phone calls, and I didn't have the resources available. Now we're saying, had I known, had I had this guide when I saw my niece in Alaska before this all began, I could have had those conversations with her. I just didn't know.
I think it's really important for those who are coming to understand that Fresno County has some of the highest incidents of trafficking per capita in the nation. Yeah. As Eric said, America has the highest incident of trafficking, and that California holds right there between that number 1 and number 2 spot, battling it out from time to time with Texas and Florida. And our children here not only need this information, we can't go without it. And I can say from the bottom of my heart, I'm really, again, very appreciative for everything that I'm learning, but I don't want anybody to sit in my shoes. My daughter's death could have been prevented, and I have no doubt about that. Mm-hmm. If the right information, if the right tools were present, maybe if I would have had this information, right, we would be looking at a different situation. Mm-hmm. So I just implore you to come out, to understand the community that you live in, and understand the dangers that are present. And in that, you'll be able to sleep better tonight, and you can ultimately secure your child's safety with 3 hours of your time tomorrow.
And I want us just to put a pin in it. Every time we go speak, and I'm sure this is the same for you, every single time, I don't care if it's in a church, I don't care if it's in a community group, I have audience members that come up and say, there's got this situation. We were in Texas just last week, and we had 3 people come up, and they were telling us the situation of this behavior, and all 3 of those are legitimate cases.
Active cases.
And so not only do we want to make sure that we understand that we have a tool for the parents to talk about it, but they're going to start seeing it. Mm-hmm. And then they can even have it. We have on our website, we have where you can report a tip. So families can report a tip, and then we can process it. And if we need to elevate it to the capabilities that we have, we can do that. There was a 6-year-old girl that there's a situation, and her mom knew me. She heard me speak. She asked, she's like, hey, this is what's going on. I've gone to churches. I've gone to NGOs. I've gone to the police. Nobody will respond. Nobody will help me, and I know my 6-year-old. As soon as we got the information, because of the great relationship that we have built, we had a federal officer who I text him. He texted me right back. We got everybody on the phone together, and it's now an active case. She spent 9 months screaming from the mountaintops, but everybody just thought, oh, she's just hysterical. She's just problematic. That's the hope that's available and accessible when you know what to look for.
That's exactly right. And that's why we built this, this whole organization, so that we can be able to serve the most vulnerable. And they don't have to think about what to do next, or even how to approach law enforcement or how to approach a counselor. We have all that for them. And so we want to meet them where they are. If it's a prevention, if they're in the middle of a case, if they're in the middle of a grooming. I built a security ministry at my church, and we were relatively new. This was only a couple years into it, and we just started taking on cases one at a time. We had some technology, but not what we have now. And he said, I have my sister-in-law adopted a girl out of foster care when she's 5. She's 15. They're a different culture, and she had this really cute boyfriend. She fell in love with him, and she's out the window. So we sent out a legal affidavit to the mom. The mom came back. They gave us information and passwords on phones, social media, emails, and we quickly realized who they were. We went into geolocation, and then and this is something that is really important. We love law enforcement. The way that it's structured, if a case originates in local law enforcement, it's stuck there. And a lot of the
until
times,
federal authorities are invited in.
yeah, and so and the traffickers know this, so they immediately move the kid out of that jurisdiction. When we get the tip and we own the intelligence, we could take it wherever we want.
Well, that's awesome.
And so 5 hours and 31 minutes, 352 miles away, within 120 seconds, 2 minutes of that 42-year-old woman. So the 16-year-old boy that said he was falling in love with a girl said, my car doesn't work, and I have my aunt come and pick you up. And this girl willingly hops into a car
Someone she doesn't know.
with the aunt of her boyfriend, treating her really nice, offers her marijuana, everything's chilled, and, she was a trafficker. Once we found out who she was, so we had both law enforcement and then also deputized Tier 1 assets, and so they were MARSOC, former Marine Special Operations soldiers, to come out and intervene because law enforcement wasn't close enough, and they were closer because we were keeping them abreast of the pathway. They were actually following the car from a distance.
Oh, wow.
And so before that girl had serious drugs put into her, and this woman was known for putting heroin into the girls that she trafficked, we got the girl. She was arrested. She's never getting out of jail. And she was protected. And so this is why we exist, and that's on the responsive side, but it's equal to the prevention side as well. And so, and then this is a message to you. I'm a dad of 4 kids. Dads, come along. You need to get involved. Most traffickers will tell you they will not target a kid if they know there's a strong dad in the picture.
Right. That's true.
That's
very true.
95%
Yep.
of the traffickers that are in jail that have been interviewed about this say they will not go after a kid if they know that there's a strong dad that's behind them, because they're afraid they're going to get shot or beat up with a baseball bat or something. And so, I'm not encouraging dads to take the law into their own hands. However, we got to all protect our children, right? And so dads, come tomorrow and learn about how to be able to do this, how to be able to play your part within this ecosystem in order to protect your children. From President Trump down to HSI to down to the FBI under the current administration, and it's been an absolute privilege in order to be able to work with you and to work with all of your special agents that are out there that are dealing with CAC, which is crimes against children, and ICAC, which is internet crimes against children as well. And so it has been so much easier to be able to work with a bunch of different people that are focused on excellence with servant heart positions. So thank you so much. We are grateful. Yeah, so Ken McAlpine is here with us today, and we're grateful for her. And she leads the California Intercessors Group Against Trafficking, and they do so much good work. And so we know that this is also not a battle of flesh and blood, but against the principalities and rulers of the air. It says that in the scriptures. And so, church, number one, we need to be very prayerful. And so we're going to challenge you to build prayer ministries that are specific to care for, protect children, and then combat the trafficking, the grooming, the sextortion, all of it. And so we will give you prayer points to do that. We'll go ahead and build those up and do that. We have a ministry alliance where we've trained over 2,300 ministry leaders that are Catholic, Messianic Jewish, evangelical, all across the board. We are not about working with in a denominational way. We are simply focused on the mission to protect, to recover, and to restore children. And guys, remember, faith without deeds is work. It says that in the book of James. We want to be prayed up. We want to be mission ready. But this is one of those issues where the mission is happening 24/7, 365. And remember, Matthew 11:28, it will exhaust you if you try to do this in your own strength. And so we have the ability to be able to go to the greatest burden bearer there is, Jesus.
and say, I give you my burdens today, and I receive your peace so that I may be recharged again, whether it's 5 minutes or whether it's for the next day, whatever the case is, because we don't want this really difficult issue to disrupt the peace in your life. Your peace that transcends all understanding comes from our Father. And so let's remember that and let's celebrate that as well.
And come join us in prayer.
Yeah. Yeah, join us in prayer. Father God, we love you, and we thank you for, Father, we're sorry that any of these kids, and one of your kids right here, has been hurt in the worst of ways. But we can see that she's been restored. She's been trained and equipped and empowered. That she's been sent out with a mantle over her to be able to untraffic this entire area. To be able to be an ambassador of hope and of victory to so many of these kids that are facing this issue. They come in broken, and she sends them out restored. And so, Lord, we need your continual help. We need your help. We need you to guide us and lead us all the time. We're here. We're listening with our ears, with our hearts, with our minds, with our souls. Mobilize us, Lord. Yes. Mobilize the church. Awaken the church. Equip the church. Mobilize the church. Father, if you do that, this problem is gone overnight. So we thank you for you have given your children the authority, the same authority that you gave Jesus, to protect his children. Father, we love you and we thank you for the privilege to be called to be able to do this. In Jesus' name, amen.
Jesus' name.
You don't know what I feel, but I